What's up, everybody? We're back with another Live to Roll Live. This week is kind of an awesome one, I think. It's going to be a really fun topic to talk about. But we'll get some quick intros here and then get right into it. My name is Shawn. I'm a C5, C6 quad from a snowboarding accident 17, almost 18 years ago now. Tom, what you
What's
kick it
up,
off?
everybody? I'm Tom Conaway. Super excited for today's topic as well, and super excited to have Eric with us. He's a really amazing guy. But I'm a C5, C6 quad as well, coming at you guys from Southern California. And yeah, been paralyzed for 24 years. Now let's toss it on over to Bobby.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Glad you're able to join us. Glad you're back. We have a great topic today. My name is Bobby Rohan. I'm a C56 quadriplegic. I was hurt 32 years ago from a bicycle accident. And let's go over to our guest, none other than Eric from straight from outer space. Eric, take it away.
Well, not quite outer space yet, but we're working
Well,
towards it. My
yeah.
name's Eric Ingram. Uh, I have arthrogryposis. I use a manual wheelchair. I guess I'm here to talk about my experience with Mission AstroAccess and the fun stuff we're doing there.
And
Yeah,
just to
awesome.
touch on a couple of Eric's other endeavors in life, he is a physicist and a CEO, a scientist and a businessman and a rugby player and a scuba diver and many other things, martial artist,
Gamer,
and
streamer.
gamer. We've had Eric on here before talking about streaming and adaptive gaming. Maybe we can touch on some of that other stuff if we do have time in the end. But we just want to say thank you, Eric, for being here. I really appreciate you taking time today to talk to us about AstroAccess. So, can you tell us a little bit about that and your involvement with them?
Yeah, sure. So AstroAccess was an idea came up with by Anna Volker and George Whitesides about a year ago. That's basically in what it says. It's an effort to make space travel accessible. Um, Currently, that's not widely considered in the space industry. People who are astronauts have the right stuff. They're physically fit, perfect human specimens. But we realize that if humanity is truly going to be able to expand outward into space and be a spacefaring civilization, we're going to need to be able to bring everyone. And we're still early enough on the time period of human space travel. We're still in the beginning. And so, you know, um, we're looking to incorporate accessibility and how to get more people with different abilities able to fly in suborbital flights, orbital flights, and beyond in space. And the way we did that for the first go was I was one of 12 ambassadors, is what we're called, um, chosen to go on the first parabolic flight. So it was a zero G corporation airplane that does parabolas, and you get short instances of microgravity. And so we got to test out a few things to help us function and exist in microgravity more easily.
That's so cool.
That
Yeah.
is pretty amazing. So, how did you get involved with Astro Access?
So I'm, as you mentioned before, thanks for the extra bio points there.
Yeah.
Um, I work in the space industry and I'm a huge space nerd and have been my whole life. And of course, as someone with a disability, um, kind of understand that I'm not who NASA is going to choose first, believe it or not. And I've applied to be an astronaut twice, knowing full well that I'm not going to get accepted. And so that's always been in the back of my mind. And, I've always thought of it about the best route to go to get to space and how I'm going to do that. And so I was at an event called Yuri's Night earlier this year. It was a digital event, and at my digital table was a person I know through the industry named Tim Bailey, who's the executive director of Yuri's Night and actually on the management team for Astro Access. And he connected the dots instantly in his head. He's like, "Oh, you should know about this project I'm working on called Astro Access." And I think within 10 seconds of him starting to explain it, I was like, yes, I'm in. Like, sign me up. So I originally joined the management, like the organizing team in the April, May timeframe, um, kind of developing aspects of the flight and the mission and our pathway forward for the physical impairment, mobility impairment side of the equation, and how we would test for things and how we would improve things. And later, I applied for and was selected as one of the ambassadors that flew on the plane.
Wow.
Awesome. That is incredible.
Yeah, that's
um,
really cool. I was gonna ask, what other, because you were one of the physical disabilities and stuff. So, what other disabilities did they incorporate and bring up as well with you? And were you the only physical disability or person in a wheelchair, or?
No, so there were 12 ambassadors chosen, and there are three impairment groups. So there's the mobility impairment, hearing impaired, and then blind, low vision impaired group. And there were six people in the mobility impairment group, two in the hearing impaired deaf group, and then four in the blind, low vision group. Um, and so each of those groups had different things they were trying to solve for. Oh, and before I even get to that, within the mobility impairment group itself, there were several different disabilities represented. So I have arthrogryposis and use a manual wheelchair, and have range of motion issues and things like that. There was another ambassador who is a quadruple amputee. There was two T level paras and two single leg below the knee amputees. So even within the mobility impairment group, there was like a wide range of different disabilities and things that we had to solve for.
Wow, that's
so,
cool.
what kind of stuff were you
Amazing.
testing up there? While before we get into the experience, what was the goal? Just to see if you guys could get individuals with disabilities up into zero G environment. But were there any other testing things you guys were monitoring or like trying to figure out while you were up there?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that we're trying to do is lay the groundwork and the foundation for future flights and for verifying that people with disabilities are at no more of risk during space travel than anyone else, and that there's not a ton you have to do to account for people with disabilities. We're looking for the simplest solutions possible that can enable and help the most people possible. And so for the mobility impairment group, there were several things we were testing for. Moving, so direct point to point motion, not moving, so station keeping and staying still, which in microgravity is a lot more challenging than you would think. And then performing simple tasks, including getting back to what was our seating area to mimic re-entry for a suborbital flight. You have to be able to get back to your seat and strap in before the gravity comes back. And so those were the things we were um, working for in our group. The deaf low hearing group was working on communication related things. So understanding when the parabolas start, when they stop, preparing for different parts of the flight and how we communicate that. And of course, if you're upside down or floating around, like ASL gets complicated. So a lot of questions surrounding that. And for the blind group is really about situational awareness, like knowing where you are when there's no gravity. Usually, blind people use canes and other ways of being able to feel around and getting sensory input from that. And so, if you don't have that sort of tool at your disposal, and you suddenly have two more degrees of freedom of motion, how do you know where you are and how do you navigate based on that? And so, those were the problems we were essentially solving for.
That's incredible. And as with most things, I'm sure this has advantage and application to understanding this stuff for space traveling individuals that maybe aren't disabled and stuff. All of this, just like you said, Eric, we're on like the cutting edge of like the space frontier, and collecting all this data, doing all this research and tests is going to help, lead us forward in, greater, um, greater adventures in that direction. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience? What was zero G like? How did it
Uh,
feel? What was it like getting
it
up there in the plane? Were there any negatives? Was there any downside to it, or was it all awesome?
Gotcha. I mean, it was definitely an experience, and per your previous comment, solving for people with disabilities solves for everyone, right? Like
Yep.
ramps don't really affect anyone negatively, and automated doors don't really affect anyone negatively, and so really the things that we were trying to do, if anything, benefit everyone, right? And so, for instance, sorry, I'll get back to your question, but for instance, for the blind
Very
group,
good.
we were working on different textures, different surface textures as a way to identify where they were in the plane. And for the mobility impairment group, we needed more handholds to hold on to for movement and for staying put. And so the ideas we're working on is making those handholds different textures with different information on them. So that way, uh, we can use them to navigate and move, but people who are vision impaired can also use it to navigate based on what they feel, where they are. That gives them information like, oh, I'm on the ceiling halfway down the fuselage of the plane because I feel this texture, right? And
Yeah.
that helps everyone. More handholds help. Um, if the lights go out, having ways to navigate in the dark also helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so ideas like that were how we were thinking of how to best solve for everyone with inclusive design. So how was my flight? How did everything go? It was
Yeah.
awesome. Is the short answer. Um, for anyone who doesn't know, the Zero G Corporation plane is, I forget the make. I think it's about the same size as a Boeing 737, but I think it's a different brand, so my bad. Um, Flies out over the Pacific and does parabolas, so it goes up um, to a height and then basically goes straight down for a short period of time before curving back up and then going up. And so during the down portions, you experience either low gravity or microgravity, which is for all intents and purposes zero gravity, but people will get angry if I say that. And then on the up portion, you actually experience hypergravity. So you end up with 1.8 Gs of force when you make that climb back up to the higher altitude. So it was an experience. Like it was awesome. It was interesting. We did one Martian gravity parabola at the beginning, which is a third of the Earth's gravity. Then we did two lunar gravities, which was a sixth of Earth's gravity. And then we did 12 microgravity or zero G parabolas after that. And so, it was a range of experiences and getting the lighter feeling and then eventually the weightless feeling was spectacular. Experiencing the extra G forces going back up was definitely interesting. And, 1.8 Gs, you feel it a lot more than you think you will. Um,
Yeah. I imagine.
and it
So,
What
and
did
was
it
this
feel like though? Like,
this
do you
this
feel sore afterwards? Like, was it hard on your body?
Uh, not necessarily. The zero G portion, the low G portion, no issues. Um, I would say for the higher G portions, just make sure like you're laying in the position you want to lay in by the time the gravity starts again, because you basically get sucked down to the floor, and you're not really moving very easily. So you just want to make sure you're not in any sort of like compromised position, but usually you're not, and you have like enough time to do that. But I mean, again, you definitely feel the higher G portions.
and
How
this was all
long
done
is
in
each?
one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
I
ask
mean, I
questions.
just wanted to. So this was all done in one run.
So yeah, the entire flight happened over like a 2 hour period from like wheels up to wheels down. Each of the parabolas actually only last about 20 to 25 seconds.
Okay.
And so you don't have a lot of time to prepare. You don't have a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
Um, and string it all together, I think we had something like 6 minutes worth of weightlessness. something like that. Someone can check my math, but each parabola is very quick, so you have to kind of be thinking very crucially about how you want to spend that 20 seconds. And while there was a lot of fun to be had towards the later parabolas, I was definitely focused on trying to get some tasks done and get some usable data.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's the worst experience when you're going through those higher G, going through that higher G? And is it just the position you're in, or is it hard on the stomach, hard on the head, the body,
I mean,
the shoulders?
it's yeah. So it's weird. At the end of it, I felt like I had done kind of a cardio workout, because I think when you're in the higher G portion, like your muscles are trying to essentially push against that extra weight. And so I don't know. I think there's like a weird aerobic exercise going on. But what I would say, and this kind of comes into like future designs, especially when you're thinking of like launches and things like that, is having things form fitting to your body. I am, let's say, an atypical body shape, and my legs don't straighten. And so I think having more cushioning in the shape of my body would make the higher G portions more tolerable, and less. I mean, it didn't hurt me at any point, but I would feel it less, I think, if I was laying on something that conformed to my body shape. And so things like that are going to be important once you go to suborbital and orbital flights, where they experience up to like 4Gs, right? And so we're going to need to be able to design some sort of seating arrangement that is either adjustable or specifically form fitting to each person. And so again, that's more research down the road, but one of the things I'm thinking about looking forward.
That's incredible, man.
So
Is there any?
Go ahead, Bobby.
Go ahead, Tom. I just had a
Um,
quick question of that.
yeah.
Is there a chance that you're in low gravity and then all of a sudden those G's start and a drop to the ground or a drop to the floor?
No, so the Zero G Corporation crew is amazing at what they do. Like, all of them have flown thousands of parabolas, right? So they warn you before they pull out of the parabola, or the zero G portion, right? So they say feet down, coming out, and you have a few seconds before the gravity comes back, and it's not like an instantaneous switch. It's more of like a kind of gradual flow into the gravity and then high gravity portion, that you have, maybe 5 to 10 seconds of transition time before you have to really worry about the high G setting in. So no, it's not like they turn the gravity back on and everything falls. It's
Yeah.
much more controlled and stable than that.
Yeah, that's what I was picturing at first, like when like just like everything kind of just dropped, like.
I don't,
But
kind of like
that's
when you
cool.
see in the movies, it's just like,
Yeah. So somebody actually asked in the chat about BAL program or whatever in space, which they're not doing that in space, but I am curious if like that high G, like I don't know, if I feel like going like as our bodies are kind of weird, and like going from like that low G to the high G, like I
Yeah,
don't know. It's just,
it's
I would be afraid if I had done a BAL program earlier in the day, like, and
as so I can't speak directly to valve programs or catheters or anything like that. I don't use them, but I have many friends that do and have had conversations about it. On a flight that short, probably not a big deal. Like, again, wheels up to wheels down was 2 hours, so you can plan for that ahead of time and probably be okay. And there's the time you're flying out to the area where you're doing the parabolas and flying back. That's about like 20 minutes each, where it's just like a normal plane ride. So whatever you do in a normal plane, whatever you could theoretically do there. Um, but with the two paras that I mentioned before, I had the conversations with them, um, and looking at longer duration spaceflight. Like, if you look at the SpaceX Inspiration 4 mission that just happened, that was 3 days long. If you look at stays on the International Space Station, which can be up to 6 months long, having to figure out those logistics, with people who don't have full control of their systems, is going to be a process, and is going to be something that needs to be studied. Because honestly, I don't know how those things would be affected if there's no gravity. I don't know if a catheter still works if there's no gravity to pull things out,
Yeah.
or how a bow program would work if you can't stabilize your positioning and things like that.
Yeah.
So again, I can't speak for it directly, but this is definitely another area that needs to be researched for long duration spaceflight. Anything longer than 6 hours, right, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It's going to
definitely.
be
Even like you said, a few day trip into space, it's becoming like a more realistic possibility for people in the future to possibly do with SpaceX and everything that they're doing with all these reusable rockets and stuff. So I'm sure that it's a question in a lot of people's minds. I was watching all that stuff with the Inspiration 4 mission, and even the woman who was like, didn't she have
she has an
bone transplant?
internal prosthetic. Yeah,
Yeah, she has an internal prosthetic. Um, and I thought that was like really unique and fascinating. Um, but it did start to spark those questions of, hey, what if a quad, went up there instead,
yeah.
and was spending a couple days floating around in that little
There
pod in
will be.
space? Yeah,
Yeah, the short
definitely.
answer
No, I
is
mean,
like there will be someone who is that person.
yeah,
Not sure when and where and who they are, but it's inevitable that that will happen. Or they even acquire their injury in space, right? And so then how do you deal
Well,
with that? But that's a whole other thing. Um, and I had a point, but I definitely forgot it. So
well, now you just got my
I'm
like
tr-
brain running. Like Mason in the chat said, like zero G, like every quad's dream. Like my favorite time is when I'm like floating in some water, right? And I know like that's how some astronauts train is, like in a completely submersive environment because it can
yeah,
simulate like working in zero G, right? Because you're just floating. But the relief it has on your shoulders and your body, all the weight that's kind of pulling us down, in our tight sitting positions. Um, did like I guess you probably only like there were such short instances of zero G. Like, did you feel any of that like in your body when you're floating around? Like any kind of that like similar relief like you might experience like floating in water?
yeah, I did. It wasn't as immediate, I'd say, as water because you don't have that buoyancy. I think
Yeah,
it would take time for you to kind of stretch out in microgravity as opposed to like when you're floating in the pool. But I definitely did feel some of that. Granted, it was immediately counteracted by the high G portion, so I didn't get a chance to enjoy it thoroughly. But there is definitely some of that. And um, one point I'll mention is not just the zero G portion, but the lunar gravity portion was something that I was totally ignoring. Like I had no interest in the lunar gravity thing because I was like, I can't walk on Earth, can't walk on the moon. It's not going to change anything. So I wasn't. I paid it no mind. Like I didn't plan for it. I was just going to kind of like wait it out. Maybe I'll just do some push-ups with a pinky or something and be done with it.
yeah,
Um, but what I found, and I have leg strength and I have full muscles. I found that in lunar gravity, I could stand unassisted,
wow.
which is not something I can do on Earth. I have to lean against something. I have to, use something to keep me upright. Um, and there's a picture of it. I don't think we've released it publicly yet of me standing in lunar gravity. Uh, and that was something that was totally unexpected. So while it is cool for me, and I'm not trying to get down like this inspiration story, but being able to stand for the first time ever unassisted is kind of a big deal. So then that
yeah,
gets down the road of what sort of therapies could you do in lunar gravity, right? Um,
That's cool.
Maybe there's rehab programs or something that could be done on the moon eventually that
yeah.
more rapidly accelerate regaining function and training muscles and stuff like that. So again, a whole nother avenue of potential research that is out there that is to be explored. And just this one flight, we found out so much and opened up so many different avenues of things we can look into and things we need to figure out that it was really kind of ridiculous how much ground we were able to cover and figure out with this one flight.
All
That's
right, we
so
got to
cool,
work
man.
towards a future where all disabilities get space rehab for like 6 months post
I
injury
know,
to
that'd be
recover
crazy.
and rehabilitate on the moon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Um,
can you
every
imagine
yeah
Like, where'd
one
everybody
you
who
day
be
gets
you're
on
like,
that? Oh,
VA
I was on
stuff.
the moon.
Yeah, everybody who gets VA stuff, you gotta all partner up to get that funded for us. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no doubt. That's crazy. Well,
Well,
it's so freaking cool. I just want to sit here and nerd out and ask you a million questions. But I
Go
do
for
want
it.
to get to some concrete stuff. What are the future plans for Astro Access now that you guys had one successful flight and you learned so much and like gathered so much information? What are the next steps for you guys?
So the short answer is we're still kind of figuring it out. We have a partnership with MIT Media Lab for developing technologies that we want to test on future flights. And MIT Media Lab, I think, does a parabolic flight um, every 6 months or so with their classes. And so we're working with them to maybe get some of our people on board to test some things, but if not us, then at least the experiments on board to test things in microgravity. So there's a pathway forward with that. And based on the press we've gotten with this and some other press that's to come out down the road, we're getting a lot of interest from potential funders of future flights that would be fully ours. And so we really want to build up a whole flight plan and regimen and, develop up uh, this whole thing. And right, we want to build up to actual space flight. So the long-term vision is suborbital flight. So things like Virgin Galactic or Blue Origin flights where they just go up into space and come back down. And then eventually orbital flight, like the Inspiration 4 mission from SpaceX and things like that. So we're working on it. I mean, if anyone out there wants to write some checks, we're happy to take it. We're affiliated with a nonprofit organization called Yuri's Night, so we can make that happen.
that is
Awesome. That's
awesome.
really great to know. We do have links to AstroAccess in the description of the video, and there's also a link to a New York Times article about it. And yeah, go check it out. I was nerding out on the website, reading about all this stuff before the pod, and it's really inspiring. It's so cool. I just think about the potential of like Blue Origin and hopping in one of those. Like they just took William Shatner up into space. He's a 90-year-old man. I mean, he, for all intents and purposes, as an elderly individual, may experience some level of, disability himself. And that's amazing. So I can imagine how cool that would be to pop up in
Yeah,
for the odds for Blue
yeah, I
Origin.
can't imagine any 90-year-old not having any sort of disability.
Yeah.
Right.
So I might as well classify it. But even the Inspiration 4 mission with Haley, I think her last name's Arsenault, the one with the internal leg implant.
Hmm.
Uh, they went on centrifuge training for that mission, and she went up to 8 Gs on the centrifuge when they only needed to go up to 4, but they were doing G loading training, and I think they covered that in the Netflix series. Uh, that's a huge data point. If someone with an internal prosthetic bone transplant thing can go up to 8 Gs on a centrifuge, that is something that has probably not been tested before. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so there's a lot more data points happening these days. And, I think the need to factor in these designs and considerations is getting more and more important as more and more people are able to afford to take trips like these.
All right, everybody out there with social media, tweet this podcast at Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and get some traction
Let's
in that
yeah,
direction.
let's get it right up there.
Yeah, let's do that.
Um, so, what was your prep for? Like, I mean, I know you got involved, but what was like your prep for the space flight? Was there any training or anything involved in getting ready to go up um, into microgravity?
Yeah, no space flight. Just for clarity, again, we stayed in the atmosphere. It was in an
Right.
Yeah,
airplane.
upper
Um,
atmosphere. Yeah.
yeah, just trust me. Once the space nerds get in here, they will pick apart all of the words. So
Right.
I'm just trying to help you out.
No, no, we
Uh,
appreciate it.
so a lot of it was pre-prep. A lot of it, there's not much you have to do physically to prepare your body for this. It's not like a grueling experience, but there was a lot of preparation in setup and planning for the things we wanted to test in the parabolas, right? Like you have to come up with the experiments, you have to come up with how you're testing them, and you have to come up with a plan for how you're going to test it in microgravity. 20 seconds is a very short period of time. So everyone, you'll see in the pictures posted, we all had essentially what quarterbacks wear with the play calls on them, with
Uh,
individual parabola plans for that flight, so we could check it, make sure we're doing the right thing, make sure we have the right doodad out, and we're kind of staying focused that way. But we got there 3 days, I think, before the flight. We did a lot of ground training, conversations, and fine tuning everything. A lot of talking, a lot of collaborating. It was the first time the full team and the ambassadors were in the same place together. So there was a lot of mind melding that happened that doesn't quite happen through Zoom or unfortunately YouTube streams. But then it went into preparation, right? So we were able to access the plane the day before the flight and do prep setups of everything. So for one, we had to worry about the logistics of getting the chairs on and off the plane. So we had to practice that. They have a huge cargo door that they opened on the plane, and then they have one of those roll-up switchback ramps that they use on the smaller planes at airports. And so we utilized that to get on and off the plane. So we had to make sure that worked. We had to set up all the experiments, make sure things are attached in the right spot, and plan everything out, right? So that's kind of what went into it. Like, it wasn't like I was, running up the stairs like Rocky or anything, or punching any meat things, but
There's
there's
just
a
tons of
lot more
preparation.
mental preparation. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Logistics and mental preparation was huge.
yeah, absolutely.
so with all
Great.
this setup and getting there before, a lot of help. Did you need a lot of help? Are you able to do most of it? And then
So
once you were going through all the experience, did you need a lot of help, especially going through the less gravity and the G forces?
gotcha. So there is a huge team around AstroAccess. I think there were 30 something people on the plane. 12 of them were the ambassadors. I think four of them were Zero G Corporation staff, so that the plane company's staff, and then the rest were people supporting AstroAccess. So each ambassador had a designated staff member to not necessarily help them, but help them coordinate what they were doing. And some people needed more assistance than others based on their disabilities or based on the complexity of the things that they were testing. I was fairly minimal. I think there was only one or two times I needed any assistance. That's usually just because I was careening out of control rather than like actually needing help. So yeah, I mean, and that's just who flew. There was another probably 10 to 20 people who weren't on the plane who are supporting it on the ground through all the logistics and planning and everything. So like it's a huge effort, and I'm pretty sure almost everyone is volunteer. So a lot of people are working to make this happen, and a lot of people put in a lot of effort to see this through.
Yeah, and I imagine just like the fuel and like the plane and like the associated cost that comes along with like a 2 hour high altitude parabolic flight like that. I imagine it's pretty crazy too. Um,
It's definitely
yeah,
not cheap, and
yeah,
AstroAccess has a lot of um, sponsors and supporters who helped cover it. The George Whiteside's Family Foundation, I hope I said that right, is like the primary contributor. I sit on the board of directors of the Space Frontier Foundation, who is also a sponsor. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of companies and organizations that are supporting. DAV was another one. They sponsored one of the um, ambassadors and covered a lot of expenses for them. Uh, so yeah, not a cheap endeavor, but there's been a lot of people that stepped up to help this first flight, and I hope a lot more that are stepping up to help the more long-term vision and plans for multiple flights and beyond.
yeah. Well, it's really amazing to see that it got some good like social media attention and stuff. Like seeing Bill Nye as like one of the leaders in like the space frontier. Like tweeting it out and stuff and sharing it. Hopefully, does get the message out. because it's a super important one. Just like what you said earlier, like all this research, it benefits everybody, not just individuals with disabilities. So it's just like a win-win-win situation. But a little bit more about Mr. Ingram. If you got an opportunity to do a longer experience in space via Blue Origin or SpaceX or Virgin Galactic or something like that, would you do it?
Oh,
Do you have
absolutely.
want
Like
to?
without hesitation.
Yeah.
I've told, people ask me, what would you do in space? Like the furthest I'd go is the moon. Like I have no desire to personally go to Mars. I think that's a bit far for me. But like I'm cool going to the moon, hanging out in the cislunar ecosystem, staying, within visual range of Earth. Nice 3 day trip there and back. Nice good vacation spot. But beyond that, I'm good. And there's a lot of people that want to go to Mars. I'm not one of them, but you guys go for it.
Would you go if that was the option? They're like, no, Eric, we're doing a trip to Mars, not the moon. Do you want,
So
or is
the
that too much?
fastest route to Mars is 9 months one direction,
Wow.
right?
Okay. That's
Um, right. So, and I think the way the planets align, like the shortest that trip will be is 2.5 years. Um,
okay. Yeah.
so again,
I,
probably not,
yeah, I
because
understand
I'm
that.
pretty sure even by the time I get there, I'll probably be sick of space. So
You'd be sick of
probably not.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about this like frontier into traveling into space is it's not really a guarantee of return home. What even if you make it to Mars, um, figuring out how to manufacture the fuel to get back, establishing some stuff on Mars and stuff. I mean, it might be a one way trip, even if you make it all the way there and kind of can establish yourself. So there's so much beyond the disability aspect of that trip that you'd have to consider. I imagine
Oh,
that
come
would
on,
just
Oh, for
be
Tom.
sure.
They
absolutely
know how to.
crazy.
Tom, they know how to do it. Didn't you read The Mission or Martian? The Martian.
The
The
Martian.
Martian,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know,
Mark
right?
Watney is on top
It's
of it.
not.
Just bring your
It's on the
potatoes.
movie.
Yeah. Bring your potatoes
If
with you.
if Mark Wahlberg is coming, or not Mark
Matt
Wahlberg,
Damon.
Matt
Matt
Damon is
Damon.
coming, then I'm along for the ride.
That's
Yeah,
a
Elon's working on all the Mars stuff, so Elon Musk will figure it out with his Starship. I trust that that'll happen. But yeah, no, probably wouldn't sign up for that trip myself.
So, what are the
Um,
plans for the AstroAccess in the future? Do you guys have plans to do some future flights coming up the next year or two, couple years?
Nothing, nothing's concrete yet. Again,
Okay.
everything is pending different levels of funding and speed of that funding. Again, they were planning to do some flight things with MIT Media Lab because they do flights, I think, once or twice a year that will include our experiments at minimum, but might also include a couple of our people. I know that they want to do full parabolic flights in the future. I know that when they have the capacity to, they'll probably do another call for additional ambassadors. So, it won't just be the 12 of us. There'll be different classes that come through, kind of like astronaut classes, and then build up the maybe extra access ambassador core um, as that goes forward. But again, not most of those plans are not super concrete at this time.
well, so that was going to be my next question is, let's say I have some endeavor to experience zero G myself and, possibly get up into space. How could I possibly do that? Do I just reach out to Astro Access and be like, hey, I'm a quad with some interest in space travel? Um, or are you guys, thinking about, figuring out like an application process or?
Yeah, we previously did an application process for this first round. I think it was open for about a month. I forget the total number of applicants, but it was in the three digits. Um, and we do something similar to that in the future, where have a period of open applications and things like that. But the Zero G Corporation, like they fly all the time, like that's their job, and you can buy tickets on there. It won't be quite the same kind of thing that Astro Access is doing, and kind of going to be thrown into the mix with whoever else bought a ticket there. Um,
Uh,
but that is accessible to essentially the general public. Um,
Okay.
you know, more expensive than a normal plane ticket, so prepare for that, but
Yeah.
cheaper than going
Yeah,
to
no doubt.
space.
Yeah, you got it, Tom. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, if I would definitely do it if I got the opportunity. I don't know if I'd be willing to fork out the change. I would fork out the change to do something like Blue Origin. Like if it meant I could exit the atmosphere and hang out in space for a little while and float around and like see the Earth, I would pay probably a ridiculous amount of money for that experience. But
I think I think they published prices, didn't they? I think it's like 400 grand, so you can
There you
mortgage
go.
the
You gotta
house.
go.
hey, give me
Start
give me a
saving.
year, give me a year,
Yeah,
and
scrape together some pennies, you'll get
scrape
it.
together with some extra capital. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Collect some
That's
Coke
pretty.
cans.
That's pretty cool, though. Um, well, that's awesome. AstroAccess sounds like an incredible program, and you're an incredible example of an inspiring person leading the future. For all of us, Eric, we really appreciate you doing what you are doing for the disabled community and the space frontier. Because this is one that I have not heard about before, so it's super cool and incredibly inspiring to see what you
I,
guys are doing. It's super, super amazing.
I, I do have one more question, Eric. Did it take up a lot of time before, meaning like months of, I know you said there wasn't a lot of prep, you didn't fitness wise and all that, but just time wise, like out of your day throughout the week, how much time did it take? And out of, was it like a full-time job, part-time, or on the
Yeah.
weekends?
So,
And what,
yeah, go ahead. You can finish your question.
oh, and I was going to say, and then what are you doing now? Any, any portions with them now, that's taking up a lot of time?
Gotcha. So there's different levels of involvement. Not only was I ambassador, but I was also on the organizing team. So, I was spending maybe 5 to 10 hours a week on it, leading up to the flight, from April, May timeframe up to the flight. There's some people that were putting in a lot more time than that. Again, almost all of it is on a volunteer basis. So, it scales per person. The ambassadors were only selected, I think, 2 months before the flight itself. So they came into the organization, most of them, with a lot of this having already been formed and prepped. So for them, the time commitment, at least up front and prior to actually getting to Long Beach, were not as intensive. But again, it's kind of based on how much effort you can or want to put in. I know they're always looking for capable and skilled and enthusiastic volunteers to help with things, especially as we ramp up to future activities. More flights and whatnot. That's going to require people helping us out. So, not sure if that answered your question fully or not. Oh, and then I have a day job running another space company, so I had to make sure I put in the appropriate hours there too,
Yeah.
and things didn't kind of drop off. Tell your friends, do that. Right.
Oh,
Scout.
Yeah.
so I was gonna say, why don't you tell us a little bit about Scout and what you're doing over with that stuff too? Because I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Essentially, we're developing systems, services, and data to help space be safer to operate in. There's a lot of stuff in space, and over the next decade, there's expected to be a whole lot more stuff launched into space. And so, keeping up with tracking them and seeing what's going on up there and knowing who's doing what is going to become increasingly important. And my company Scout is developing and has developed some technology that can enable that and improve it from space itself. So, satellites looking at other satellites, kind of being like a traffic camera situation. And we launched our first payload to space in June of this year, and are making some really good progress with customers on the commercial and government side. And it's been a busy year.
When you say payload, do you mean like a CubeSat or like satellite object?
It was a subsystem on another company's spacecraft. So
Okay.
it was basically our sensor system kind of plugged into their spacecraft on the launch. we're providing some vision and navigation capabilities to them and getting some pretty good data out of it.
Amazing. That's
Yeah,
so
that's
freaking cool.
Dang.
putting putting traffic monitors up in space.
I know.
Freaking
Someone's got
amazing.
to do it. Might as well be us, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, just what you said, like I try to pay attention to a lot of the activity going on with like what they're doing, sending stuff up into space, and the frequency in which it's increasing just like the last 2 or 3 years is incredible. You can watch launches, every couple of weeks now, which not too long ago was every few months, if that. And then, like you'd be lucky if, you could even see any at all because they would never, publicly, broadcast stuff like that. But what they've done with SpaceX and Blue Origin, and now with AstroAccess, is really exciting for us space nerds who want to lead us into the final frontier.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of activity going on in the space industry, and the number of spacecraft in orbit is expected to go up 40x in the next decade. So there's going to be a lot more launches to watch, and a lot more exciting things happening in space. Not even
And
satellite related.
yeah, a lot more opportunity, just in every regard, for people interested in that kind of stuff. Um, and there's gonna be a ton of money in it too, on the business side of things.
That's the
Um,
hope.
yeah, um, I mean it's
Well,
it's an expensive endeavor for sure.
you'd be interested, Eric, my brother-in-law, he works for JPL, and he's on a committee basically where they're trying to solve how to clean up space because of all the debris that is now hanging around because of all the satellites and all the garbage that is up there. And basically, he solves all these problems, how to clean it up, or they're trying to.
Yeah, we should
So,
talk offline. We can help with that.
That's cool.
yeah,
Well, there we go.
that'd be cool. I don't know how much he's involved with it. It just one day I asked him, like, what are you doing at work? He's like, or he was in India once. I'm like, what are you doing in India? He's like, on a program, we're cleaning up trash.
Nice.
Outside of space and travel, have you been playing any rugby? Doing any other fun, crazy stuff?
Fun, crazy stuff is debatable, but have been doing some rugby. We picked up practicing again earlier this summer. Had one tournament a few weeks ago in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I realized I was terribly out of shape for the first time in my life. And so that was a pretty grueling weekend, but it was a lot of fun to get back on the court. Aside from that, it's really just been work related. Outside of Astro Access, it's been um, leading a startup is a lot of work and very time consuming, and been going to a lot of conferences and things like that. But makes every day exciting and keeps me on my metaphorical toes.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time for us today. Has there been like any videos released from your guys' experience? I saw some photos on your Instagram and
Yeah,
the
I have a
website,
photo
but
here. We
I
can.
don't know if I saw any videos. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, see, that's a
There we
pretty
go.
cool
So I
shot.
was curious,
I was
what are you
told
wearing around your head? What was the headband?
that was a microphone, actually,
Okay.
for another organization that is to be named. I was
Okay.
actually wearing like three microphones for that flight, and they like ran out of pockets. So they're like, "How about a headband?" I was like, "All right," but no. Everyone like people said I didn't smile enough in the pictures. Like everyone else is like a huge smile on my face, and they said I look serious all the time. So apparently, I got to work on like smiling more for in the moment. Yeah, so the image release is very controlled. Like they'll be releasing more images as we go forward. They're
Okay.
working on getting video together. There will be video released at some point, and it'll be really good. I know they're editing some stuff together and working on some things, but there's a lot of exciting moving pieces I can't really talk about that is part of all that. But there'll be video released hopefully in the next few weeks.
Yeah, so make sure you follow Eric and Astro Access um, to make sure you get to see all that cool stuff coming out because I want to check it out.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see some of the video of you guys floating around in microgravity like that, just to see what it looks like.
It's just going to be me tumbling around for the first few of them.
Um, I'm sure it'll be entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. There's going to be some good laughs mixed in.
um, well, I just always like imagine what my goofy body would look like floating around, tumbling around up in space. Not saying that any disabled body is goofy. That's just kind of how I picture mine.
I
But
usually go with atypical. Atypical is a good one.
atypical.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, I did have one
but
question on that, on the floating, real quick. Because I know
yeah,
you
go
don't
ahead.
have too much spasticity. Did the pairs have much spasticity, and how was that affected in the zero or microgravity? Because I know, like for me in a pool, I still like my body relaxes, but like I will still get some like pretty violent, like some I can get some pretty strong spasms, and so I just was
Yeah,
wondering, like, yeah, if you did or they got any, if you didn't, but
that
if you
is a
noticed.
that is a great question. I did not specifically talk to them about that. Um, Sawyer and Cece were the two pairs. Cece is very incomplete, so I'm not sure her spasticity or anything like that. But I can definitely ask them, and because that's something interesting that I would be interested to know too. So
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
curious because I feel like if I got like a spasm and like in the microgravity, like I'm just like it's gonna like send me into like a tumble or like
I
I
just
don't
imagine my
even.
I
legs
probably would.
kicking and just like shooting me
Well,
off in one direction.
so I guess really quick, one of the things we're working on with Sawyer was actually getting his suit so he could actually tuck his legs up almost in the kneeling position
Uh-huh.
because he has zero leg control and movement. And so, in addition to figuring out the airplane and fuselage itself, we also did a lot of adaptations to the flight suits for each person to try to add functionality and enable uh, a lot of what they're or enable a lot better function in microgravity. And so, for an example, like I mentioned, for Sawyer, he had straps built into the pants of the flight suit to actually bring his knees up and hold them in a kneeling position, which I think helped him out a lot with moving inside during the zero G portion.
Other than all
Yeah.
your microphones, did you have any design specifications to your like suit or anything to like make you more comfortable?
Well, I can say just flight suits in general suck for people in wheelchairs because it's just a big onesie with a lot of pockets. Um, so I had to do a lot of alterations to make it fit me well because, again, atypical body shape. I am not the same shape that they use on the mannequins for the flight suits. So there's a lot of alterations made there. We also had to do some pocket modifications and add in cinching to make it fit better. Um, but outside of that, I'm trying to think if we did any specific modifications to my suit. Not really. I know that other people had other modifications, like one of the amputees had a easy to remove leg so she could take her prosthetic off. And I know the quadruple amputee, she had a lot of customization done to her flight suit as well to make it work well for her and function how she needed it to. So again, so many different avenues to explore and so many exciting things on the horizon, and hopefully a lot more fun research comes out of this.
Well, I don't care what they say. I like the serious look. The pictures that I've seen so far look really amazing, Eric, and you are seriously a truly inspiring individual. Leading the forefront into this. Especially to someone like me who's a big space nerd as well, and who's thought about some of this stuff and like my fantasies. Um, like it's really amazing to see an example of you know someone experiencing some of it firsthand and kind of broaching the possibility of maybe experiencing some of this in my lifetime. It's really really exciting. So we really appreciate you coming on here and doing all you do with AstroAccess and leading the forefront of all this stuff.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
having me. I appreciate it,
Yeah.
and we're working to make it so that everybody can go to space and have equal access to it. So hopefully, I'll see you all up there at some point.
Yeah, I think that's
Yes,
so
heck yeah,
cool.
man.
Awesome. That'd
Just
be
a quick
great.
shout out. I wanted to just shout out a couple of our super chat donations. Benny Boy, appreciate you, man. Just by the way, Ben said that Shawn and Tom and Bobby no longer the man. Eric is the man. That you got the official Ben Tipton stamp. So that's saying something for sure.
That's a tough
And
burden to
then
bear, but I'll try.
oh, you're the man officially. And then Mason, really appreciate your super chat donation, bud. Hope
Always love
everybody
seeing
is
it.
well out there. Celtic Bear, Abraham Lincoln is in the chat, straight from the early 1800s. Just kidding. Um, but we appreciate all the activity in the chat today, and all your guys' commentary. It's awesome.
Yeah,
And
thank you guys.
yeah, don't forget to smash that like button. Shawn, Bobby, did you guys have anything else?
No, I was trying to like highlight some of those chat things right now, but no, that was awesome, man. I just yeah, that I was just like smiling the whole time listening to Eric, just like just I don't know. This is a really cool topic because I love space too. I'm not as much of a nerd as you guys probably growing up, but I've always loved it, and thought it's just really cool to me. Really fascinates me. So this has just been
Also,
awesome. And
great
thanks,
to
Eric.
have
Yeah, we
on.
really appreciate it.
Great to have you on, Eric. Such a different topic. A lot of times we come on here and we talk about the shit, the piss, the sores, whatever it comes with, being, paralyzed or having any type of disability, all the crap that goes with it. And this is just something different that we don't often think about, or, especially thinking that they're already starting that program. Just, I was on a committee to go to Washington, D.C. and talk about the atomic cars coming out, and that saying, hey, we need these cars built accessibly right off the assembly line. That needs to happen first. So we went to Washington to talk about that. I'm like, wow, we're talking about something that isn't even out yet, but we need to make it for the disabled. And this is a
Yeah.
great segue to do the same thing. Hey, we're all going to go up there. It's just now we need to think about it now, and not after 10 years after everybody's going up and they're like, okay, now we finally figured it out for the
So,
disabled, because that's what usually happens.
yeah, and to just one last point I want to make is you don't have to just go to space to participate in the space industry. Um,
Right.
there's a lot of people with disabilities I know who are big space nerds who have skills, but they don't think they can work in the space industry and stuff like that. And I would encourage all of you, if you have any sort of skill set and you want to work in the space industry, like go for it. You don't have to just be an engineer. And I'm tired of being the only visibly disabled person at a conference I go to, and so that's one thing I want to throw out there is that I think there's a lot more access to the space industry and all of the exciting things happening than I think people are searching for because of whatever preconceived notions you have. But just so you know, there's probably a job for you somewhere.
Yeah, and
That's awesome.
we were just at a episode on employment last week, and the benefit of having a disability, understanding, some things that other people just don't understand, because they don't experience what we do day to day, lends so much to all different kinds of things, especially when it comes to this. Eric said it best earlier: access and inclusion benefits everybody, and starting to incorporate this stuff at the start, like Bobby was talking about, instead of later down the line, once we get things going, it, is to a benefit to everybody, everybody's included. So, really awesome, cool stuff. So thanks, Eric. Appreciate you, man. And we'll get you back on soon, dude. We got like 3 or 4 episodes we need to talk to you about. We gotta do a martial arts episode, talk to you about your jiu-jitsu. We gotta, have you on for a rugby episode. Eric, you're just gonna have to keep coming back and hanging out with us. In the
Sounds good.
future.
Happy to do it.
All right, man.
Yeah, man,
Uh,
awesome guest, dude, all the time, and we definitely want to hear about the future space endeavors as well. So, and make sure, like I said earlier, to follow Eric and to follow AstroAccess on Instagram. To follow their website, everything. Check them out. Stay updated on everything coming out.
like I said, tweet it out to Bezos. You never know. That
Yeah.
viral tweet could land. But all right, everybody, live to roll.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back next week, and
Take
Brianna will be
care,
back
everyone.
on Thursday. See you guys. Live to
Awesome.
roll.